retirement plan withdrawals and Social Security taxation can conspire to push a retiree's tax bill far higher than expected. So I do want to get into some potential solutions, Eric. You have a concept called tax diversification. So tell us what that means, okay?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you really think about most people, when they're talking about investment diversification, they're talking about large company stocks, small company stocks, or stocks versus bonds. You get the little pie chart thing,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
The one disturbing thing I find is I don't know any other advisors really around here, at least, that show people a tax diversification, that little pie chart. But how much of that pie chart is not yet taxed? How much is tax free and how much is taxable? So, one of the things that we do lots of times in our live events is I'll actually talk about this because of when I see people come in, they usually have, everybody has these three types of money. So, the first one is tax deferred. So tax deferred would be IRA, 401k, if you're nonprofit, 403b, 457 if you're government. These are things where you say, don't tax me now, tax me later.
Right.
Which means they're very, very not good in retirement because there's a lot of tax to pay.
Right.
So, what size bucket do you think most people have for that? Well, this is the big one.
Tax deferred.
Tax deferred, yeah. So
It is
it's
big.
not a trash can per se, but it looks like a trash
It
can.
looks like a trash can.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's the biggest bucket that people have, and
Okay.
then the next one is taxable. So taxable would be stuff like savings accounts, checking accounts. If you have a brokerage account like regular investment stocks, investments and stuff that aren't inside your retirement plan. And that's the whole red Solo cup size. It's not a big
Oh,
trash can. It's just a little bit, a lot smaller. Now the nice thing about that bucket is you have principal. You have parts of it that you can take out that don't cost you money. Obviously, money in a savings account, other than the interest, it's all already been paid tax on, right?
mhm.
So those are monies that are a lot nicer in retirement. Now the crazy part is, what would be of these three? What do you think is the best bucket to have?
Obviously tax free.
Yeah, so tax free is would be the best.
Yeah.
So tax free can be stuff like Roth IRAs, sometimes muni bonds. It could be specially designed life insurance. And this is the crazy part: is the tax free is the little tiny red Solo shot glass. I mean
Yeah.
that's basically when I'm working with people. That's how small that part of their account is, and that's the best one.
Yeah.
Now, if you got the least amount of money in the best bucket, there's something wrong.
Mhm.
And there's something wrong that probably has been there for a while, right? Because of
Sure.
you've been having this stuff compound.
Right.
Roth IRA has been around since 1998. Since 2010, anybody, regardless of income, can convert to Roth. So these are not new things.
Yeah.
These are things that your advisor should have been talking to you about for years now, and then especially your tax person. So once you have those buckets of money and you see how much you have in them, then we can figure out what's next.
Mhm. Right. Okay. So, trying to figure out choosing from which bucket to pull. So, what does that control look like in practice, Eric?
Yeah. So, most CPAs and tax people will say, oh, just defer, defer, defer. And now that we've got our required minimum distribution age all the way up to 73, or if you're born 1960 and later, it's 75, then yeah, it sounds great. Let's just keep deferring, keep deferring. Except for what happens then? Well, when they move those ages back, the government accounting office said, we're going to, on average, the government's going to make about 15 to 20% more in tax because you waited to take your money and your money
Uh-huh.
grew.
Yeah,
And
it
now you pay
grew.
more tax. So,
That's right.
so this change was not for you. This
It
change was
was.
for them.
Yeah, we think,
Uh,
"Oh, how nice. They set the date back, the age
yeah,
back." Yeah.
yeah, no, no, no. That was not for them.
No.
That was for you. That was definitely to get you to pay more.
Yeah.
And so one of the things you want to look at is, yeah, well, what can we do, especially when you're first retired, depending on your age. If you're trying to retire earlier, say 60 or something, those people don't have Social Security turned on. So, you've got a lot less regular income. So you could be doing some good structured stuff, or maybe you take some of the taxable money, and then you can do a lot more Roth conversions and things like that. Once you start having Social Security, then now your income's a little bit higher, right? Especially if you've got a pension, it's already higher. So now you got a little bit less tax room before that next bracket jump.
Mm.
But still, you might be able to do some of that. And then down the road, yeah, there's lots of times there's no way you're going to get rid of, having RMDs and having the huge tax bill. But if we can kind of cut it by a third or half, I mean, that can be wonderful. And often we're able to do that if we've got enough timeline to do those conversions, to do all that stuff. It's not something you can retire at 72 and say, okay, I want this all converted before I turn 73. It's like, there's no room, right? No
Yeah.
timeline. So, yes, you could do a monster conversion, but yeah, you'd have to pay the tax. So nobody likes that. So,
No.
so really the goal would be is to kind of right size those buckets instead of having the tiny one be tax free. If we can kind of add more to that, it helps you out, especially in retirement, because one thing people don't think about is, there's always going to be that something, right?
Yeah.
If anybody owns a house, there's always something every year.
Always.
It's
House,
often, yeah.
house on a boat, right?
Yeah. So it's going to be
Yeah.
something different, but some years it might be only $1,000, but some years it might be 20 or 25. And,
Hmm.
so if you got a pot of money that's tax free, that's a great pot of money to have on those bad years where you can go grab it.
Yeah.
If you have it all in taxable, you have no choice. You have to go touch it. So,
Right.
so again, that's why we've created that digital toolbox for people, so that way you can get some of this information. One of the great quick little booklets you can read is, am I paying too much tax in retirement? Social Security timing decision, a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and a way to set a time with Team Heckman here. So all you got to do is text that word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or click the link below.
And we thank you so much for spending part of your day with us today. You're listening and watching Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. Now, for anybody who is listening or watching us and they have most of their savings in a traditional IRA or 401k, maybe they've never heard of this whole, 3 bucket strategy that we're talking about. Tell us how you can help them figure out where they stand, Eric.
Yeah, well, one of the first things we do is go through that personalized income plan. And once we have that in there, we can actually go line by line, year by year, see what your taxes will look like. And oh my gosh, when we show the difference between, before you have required minimum distribution and the year after, I mean,
Hmm.
people are sometimes going from 12% bracket to 32%
What?
bracket.
Oh my gosh.
So that's not 20% more bracket. That is 300% more taxes.
Mm.
So that is a lot more money. That is you paying extra Medicare premiums. There's you having lots of different costs. And that's because people just don't plan, right? And they're
Right.
not looking at this ahead of time. So yeah, if you're in your late 50s, early 60s, this is the critical time to be starting to look at this and saying, okay, how can I fix this? Yes, I should have done something probably 10, 15, 20 years ago, but yeah, we all should have done different things in the past.
Right?
so,
Yeah.
so can't go backward. So yeah, really what we want to do is look at that and look at the tax ramifications of all these different pots of money. There are some specialty strategies once you're 70 and a half for gifting. There's, certain things you can do there. Sometimes there's certain investments that you can buy that valuation goes lower for a bit and then goes back up. And so there's lots of cool little tricks and things that we can do. But, again, it's all really about making sure you have, that you have a good plan and that you
Mhm.
know what you're doing and you know what that tax hit will be and you find out before you get there.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so again, if you want to get some time to talk with us and visit with us, the easiest way to do that is actually just text the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text word visit 800-454-1184 or click the link below.